Great. And welcome to TPM, the Cool Kids Party. And I'm so pleased to have my special guest, Dr. Noel Hacegaba, the CEO of the Port of Long Beach. Noel, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure,
Such
Steve.
an honor to see you. And
The honor's all mine. Thanks for
listen,
having me.
we could talk about a lot of things with the
Yeah.
port. I know America is interested in your leadership and all the great things that POLB has done, but we got to talk about that performance by the twos tonight. Wow, great job, huh?
Thank you. You know, it's a lot of fun to collaborate with my teammates. In many ways, it's a microcosm of what I get to do every day, and that is work with an incredible group of people where each of us play a role. And when you combine the talents and efforts of everybody, great things happen. Teamwork makes the dream work.
I was thinking about that the same way. As a matter of fact, my wife is Eastern European, and she is big on teaching the kids piano and math. And she says the music influences the brain, and the math and the whole kind of shebang kind of coalesces together. I got to ask you, does your music play a significant role in your leadership style?
In a way, it does.
Tell me about
If you
that.
think about it, a port authority harmonizes different segments and actors in the supply chain. And when you bring different instruments together and you find a way to get the instruments to play along the same sheet of music, as is often said, incredible things happen. And in reality, that's how I view my job as a port authority. Is bringing the ships, the trucks, the trains, the terminal operators, all the industry partners, labor together to make beautiful music. And for us, beautiful music is moving cargo quickly, efficiently, reliably, sustainably.
Well, listen, nobody has done it better and more in a more dignified and professional way than you have. I've heard so many good things. And it's interesting, Doc. I want to talk to my audience, because the audience at LinkedIn that might be seeing you on film for the first time, we have so many wonderful new participants at TPM that I think it's amazing for them to be able to glean some information from you. So one of the things I did is I did a little study on you, and I want to talk to the audience. So
Sure.
my special guest, Dr. Noel Hacegaba, is joining us today. Noel is the CEO of the Port of Long Beach, of course. Give you a little stats. He's helped the port lead to a record 9.9 million TEUs in 2025. And the great thing is that he was key in major terminal sales, leading to the pandemic recovery efforts in the port, boosting cargo visibility. And looking forward, he's going to be doubling to 20 million TEUs. Is that right? By 2050?
Well, that's the new vision, right?
Wow, that's quite a vision.
I just cast that new vision at the State of the Port last month. And coming into this role, Steve, I thought it was important to do three things. One is I wanted to clarify our vision. Two is I wanted to simplify our mission. And the third thing I wanted to do is to amplify our impact. And if you think about it, having a vision does more than just get us thinking beyond the near term, the uncertainty, the volatility.
Sure.
It gives us something to look forward to. And vision also brings alignment, not just inside the port, but outside. I'm talking about the entire port ecosystem. And I can't tell you how many people have come to me and expressed how excited they are and energized they feel about this new vision. I mean, we're going to double our container throughput to 20 million TEUs by 2050. And I'm very optimistic we can do that.
Well, I think that you represent the government of Long Beach, and the city of Long Beach, and the country and the world is looking at your vision. You've got some great colleagues,
Yes.
running ports like New York and LA and all over the world. But the strategy that you bring is my special focus, and I wanted to talk to you about some of the things that we're experiencing now with the whipsawing effects of tariffs.
Yeah.
And how importers are pulling forward volumes into the port. How do you look at that going into 2026, Doctor, in terms of perhaps, is there a whipsaw dynamic now with the front loading, the instability of geopolitics? And is that a temporary political kind of cycle that we're in, or how do you see it impacting 2026?
Yeah, it's a great question, Steve. Let's look at 2025, because
Okay.
I think that's a pretty good indication of what 2026 could look like. In 2025, at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of doom and gloom. There were some who were suggesting that cargo volumes would drop off a cliff to the tune of 20, 30% or more. In reality, what ended up happening is all the front loading done by the shippers early in the year was so extraordinary that it catapulted us in Long Beach to our best year on record, 9.9 million TEUs. Now, of course, towards the end of the year, it was the opposite effect, right? The front loading slowed down.
Exactly.
A lot of the shipments hit early. And for that reason, there was not a huge uptick towards the end of the year. But I'll tell you what, we handled a record amount of cargo in 2025, 9.9 million TEUs, no backlogs, no delays, no congestion. My feeling is that in 2026, we will continue to flex our resilience muscle. We've all managed to figure out how to navigate the uncertainty, shifts in trade policy, shifts in tariffs. And I think 2026 is going to be another strong year. It may not be a record year, but I think it's going to be another strong year.
Do you think there could be something to be said about the fact that you had good practice? I mean, obviously, you saw that geopolitically how it happened. It turned out to be not such a bad thing. Now, maybe there was a little bit of hangover effect towards the latter half of the year, but it was a lesson learned. And I think that that's the most beautiful thing I hear you saying is that you're able to take that lesson and apply it towards your team's orchestrated, may you use the music analogy,
Yes.
symphony for 2026. It's a brilliant strategy.
Yes.
And it's interesting because as we start to segue into what we're here for, TPM, the strategy is TPM. The scale. I think the theme this year is, what is it? Cost out, putting value in. Taking cost out, putting value in. When you see that and you look at the port right now, you've got the throughput of the TEUs.
Yes.
No pun intended. How does an executive like yourself look at the big picture at a port authority level and say, okay, we've got speed, we've got reliability, we've got rail fluidity, we've got berth productivity, emissions outcome. Donkey, you answer to a lot of senior people. How do you put that all together?
That's the reason why I thought it was important to have a new vision. What a vision does is it aligns people, right? It gives us something to look forward to. It gives us something to work towards.
I get that.
In addition to music, I'm using a lot of analogies from sports, football principally. And
Tell me about that.
In fact, at the State of the Port, I mentioned that we were going to be resetting the goal line. The goal line is now 2050, and the target is 20 million TEUs. We're going to be expanding our playbook. We're going to be updating our game plan, and we're going to move to a hurry-up offense. What does that mean? Hurry-up offense, Steve, is not just about speed. It's about communicating efficiently. It's about coordinating effectively, and it's about upping the tempo, right? And that's what we as a port need to do in concert with all of our partners. So getting to 20 million TEUs, it's not as far-fetched as it sounds, but we have to earn the business. We have to demonstrate to the shippers and to our customers that we're going to deliver by driving velocity, efficiency, reliability, predictability, and sustainability, right? And in the process, we're going to be building the port of the future, and it's very exciting.
Well, it sounds like a very progressive kind of stair-step, tiered, almost you're building this incredible pyramid of business metrics that can be embraced not only by the port authority folks, but by the shippers and the tenants of the port itself. So my hats are off to you. When I think about that, actually, it really segues into my next question is that, your vision on 2050 is phenomenal, but without spilling the secret sauce of that vision, what do you think are 2 or 3 port metrics that the industry should obsess over for 2026?
Well, I think if we go back to the basics, right? The 3 things I said I wanted to do coming into this role: clarify our vision. We did that. 2050 is now in our line of sight. The second thing is simplify our mission. Go back to the basics. We're a port authority, and our focus should be on figuring out how to move cargo more quickly, efficiently, reliably, predictably, sustainably. And if we can go back to the basics and build on our value proposition, I'll give you just one example, Steve.
Okay.
You look at the shifts in trade policy and tariffs. In 2019, China alone accounted for about 70% of our business. Today, that's down to 60%. Yet, I just told you a moment ago, we set a record in 2025. So that cargo came from somewhere else. It's coming primarily from Southeast Asia now. There's been a seismic shift from China, Southeast Asia. But you know what that does for us? When more cargo comes from Southeast Asia compared to China, it adds 2 to 3 days on the water. That puts pressure on us to figure out how we're going to make up for those 2 or 3 days. Well, this is where our investments come in. Over the next decade, the Port of Long Beach is going to invest $3.2 billion in our capital infrastructure. $2 billion of that is going to be invested in our Pier B on-dock rail support facility. Pier B is going to triple our inbound on-dock rail capacity. And right now, on average, it takes 4 days to get a container that arrives on a ship onto a train to the hinterland. With Pier B, we're going to get that down to 24 hours.
Wow.
So that's just one example of how we're building the port of the future. And this is why, by the way, this is why I like to say, speed of market is a key to our success. Rail connectivity is a key to our future.
You know, it's really fascinating because I didn't really take in consideration when you talked about the 2050 plan. For example, my question was, you just answered one of my questions. You talked about how the PLLB plans for capital projects.
Yes.
That's also incorporated in the vision then.
It is. Yeah.
And how is the Plan D, I'm sorry, Pier D?
Pier B.
Yeah. Sorry?
Pier B.
Pier B.
Yeah. Yes.
Like beta.
Like yeah, I call it Pure Beast. That's the nickname, just because it's such a big, complex project. But it's Pure B. Yes.
Well, this is very fascinating because I guess I would ask you the question is, how would you explain that to the layperson attending TPM that might be looking at, okay, what port do I put my cargo through, and how that plan can fulfill that company's need, whether they're a BCO or a freight forwarder, MB or CC. So can you bring that conversation down maybe to that level?
Yeah.
How would you address that?
Let me put this in perspective for you. 2/3 of all the cargo that arrives into the Port of Long Beach ends up somewhere else. Only about a third ends up in Southern California.
Sure.
The containers that cross our docks every day reach all 435 congressional districts. So our value proposition has to be to get those containers east of the Mississippi as quickly as possible, to get those containers to all the key inland rail yards, whether it's Kansas City, Dallas, Chicago, Memphis. And so for us, when we talk about projects like Pier B, it's an enabler. It puts us in a position to move more containers more quickly, more sustainably to the hinterland, to other parts of the country more reliably, more quickly. And that's why I say that speed of market is the key to our success. Rail connectivity is the key to our future.
It's interesting. Last year I ran unsuccessfully for Florida State Representative. Right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that.
I did not know that. Good for you.
I feel a calling to, promulgate my message to not only constituents but also customers. But what you just said about touching all of those congressional districts, Bruce, started to think. First of all, what was the metric on the percentage of cargo that goes outside? What did you say it was?
Yeah, so about a third of all the cargo that arrives into our port goes and ends up here in Southern California, stays here.
Right.
2/3 is discretionary, which means, Steve, that it ends up somewhere other than Southern California. Well, and it touches all 435 congressional districts.
And that's the thing that really, I never really heard that expressed before. And it also kind of sends me a signal that if you're touching that many people, that many districts, then there's so many leaders that you have to get that message across.
That's right.
How do you do that?
Well, it's a contact sport, right? That means you got to contact as many people as possible. This is why education and advocacy is so important. I go to Washington, D.C. often. I go to Sacramento often. And the whole idea is to make sure the policymakers understand how a port like ours and the infrastructure plan we have here in Long Beach benefits the entire nation. I mean, we truly are an asset of national significance. The Port of Long Beach alone, Steve, generates 2.7 million jobs across the country. I mean, this is an incredible economic engine. So it's worth investing in ports like ours because of the positive economic impact we have.
I guess I just never really thought about, Noel, how you have to be a real evangelist for the port and how you have to get the message into so many different political constituents and also the markets that will absorb all the cargoes that are coming from. But that's interesting. It does lead me to my question about, and I hope it'd be okay if I asked you about the recent Supreme Court decision on tariffs and the front loading. I mean, from your perspective, bridging that legal and political uncertainty, how does that change the way that you operate within 2050 plan? And does it tweak it at all?
Well, I would say this, Steve. The Port of Long Beach is a safe harbor in the sea of trade and tariff uncertainty. Shippers know that regardless of what may happen next, if they send their shipments through our port, we will handle that cargo reliably, safely, and quickly and sustainably. The Supreme Court's decision ruled on the legality of the IEEPA tariffs, but it did very little to remove the uncertainty. In fact,
Maybe
if you
it
think
created
about
more.
it, the only certainty is more uncertainty because now we have customers who are seeking a refund for all those tariffs that they already paid at the same time that consumers continue to seek for relief of these higher prices. So in a way, the decision brought to it brought to a conclusion a legal question that was outstanding, but it actually generated more questions. This is again why I think it's important for all of us to flex our resilience muscle. And I think the global supply chain has figured out how to navigate this uncertainty. And this is why I think 2026 will be another strong year.
Two last questions, Doc, if
Yeah.
I may. You know Lars Jensen, of course.
Yes.
And I always have a tradition on every Monday of TPM. Lars and I sit down for about a 40-minute interview, and he comes to see me, and it's just a really wonderful thing. And I have to tell you, we talked over the weekend, after the Iranian situation,
Yeah.
and he said, Steve, things have kind of changed. This is a shooting war, and we're now faced with some other potential trials and tribulations in the Middle East and around the world. I guess from your perspective in the chair you sit, how does that play into maybe how you go about your next steps over the next 6 months, Doc?
It's just another reminder, Steve, of how anything can happen on any given day. And it's a reminder to all of us that the global supply chain is interconnected. And even though a port like ours is primarily a trans-Pacific gateway, right? Over 95% of our business comes from Asia or goes to Asia. The supply chain is interconnected. And when something like that happens, the missile strikes in Iran and the impacts to those trade lanes there, the diversion of that cargo is bound to influence fuel prices, routing decisions, the vessel networks by the global shipping lines. It's a reminder to us how interconnected we are and how important it is for all of us to pursue stability and to continue to advocate for policies that are predictable, reliable, and consistent with our priorities.
I think you've said a lot, Doctor. I think at the end of the day, it really does show not only how we are so interconnected, but I think at the same time how fragile we are, and the fact that you've done so much with the forward planning. You've really created a great blueprint for I think what a world-class port looks like, and I think we at TPM and we around the world are thankful for your leadership. So I want to thank you for joining me today.
You're very kind, Steve.
And I
My
wish
pleasure.
you all the great success, and I hope we can have more of these talks in the future.
I look forward to it, Steve. Thanks again so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
You got it.